at the startup stage. The employees, that the few he has, they are not as interested in the business as he is, and usko pata nahi ki chalegi ki nahi chalegi. And in any case, 9 out of 10 don't work out. And it's a period of struggle. And every founder will attest to that. It's probably the most difficult leg of the journey. So this could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. Many don't make it, 9 out of 10 don't make it. So that's the period of infancy. And this is the time he's working a 15-hour day, putting out fires all the time. The wife of a famous private bank in Mexico once said at a public function that this company took my husband from me when he had black hair and gave him back to me when he had white hair. So it's a struggle. It's a struggle. It's not easy. Those few who do succeed, they reach the second stage, which is the go-go stage. You can see the second one on the screen on the left. Go-go is the time when the company succeeded, cash flow is positive, customers are putting repeat orders, and company chal gayi, company succeeded, achhe din aa gaye. And suddenly the founder is as surprised as everybody else, "Arey, ye to chal gayi." And he becomes a rock star, and everybody, all his employees and socially, everybody looks up to him, say, "Hame pata tha ek din ye bada aadmi banega." And he buys his first Rolex watch. In North India, he reaches what we call Vaddi Gaddi Vadda Plot. He buys a big car, he buys a big plot, he has arrived, and why not? He's really struggled. He's really struggled. Now he's cash flow positive, and people say now he's now succeeded. And all his employees are all admirers. Wah bhai wah sir, aap to mahan hai sir. So he has a whole audience around him, and he is flush with success. And he's the most surprised. Ki chal gayi, gaadi chal gayi. The third stage is the difficult stage, and most companies don't cross the stage. That is the stage of adolescence. When the company has grown to a certain point, it has become multi-locational, a few hundred crores, maybe 1,000 crores. And suddenly, the second generation joins the family business. This is by the time the founder is 55, 60. So what happens in the adolescent stage? The adolescent stage is a zone of conflict. The second generation joins the family business. The leadership changes from a dictatorship, from a one-man show to a coalition government where a lot of people are taking decisions. Then there is the old guard who worked with the founder for the first 15, 20 years, and they have helped him bring the company to where he is. But they are very uneasy with the second generation. Pata nahi, will they remember our contribution? How will they treat us? Will they give us the respect that the founder gave? Founder is also not very comfortable because he can see some friction between the old guard who have worked with him for the last 15, 20 years and his children. So this is a period, that's another potential point of conflict, which has to be very tactfully and very professionally handled. You don't want to lose good talent. At the same time, there are some people in the old guard who've lived beyond their utility. So how do you handle them? Then the founder can't just walk away from the company and hand it over to his children, because he spent his entire life. The company is his life. He has spent 15 hours a day for 20 years, and you don't expect him to walk away from that. And if children start coming in with bright ideas and digital ideas and with fancy MBAs and said, we know a thing or two, let's try this, the founder, "Arey, ruk jao bhai. Mujhe 20-25 saal lage is company ko yahan tak lane mein, and I don't want you to fiddle around unless you're sure what you're doing." And it takes a long time for them to build, a step-by-step confidence, mutual confidence building. Otherwise, it does not work out. Then you have the usual concerns, which is there in every family. This is normal. There will be sibling rivalry, and there'll be a generation gap in thinking. Normally, the older generation will be more conservative, slower. They want to think their way through. The younger generation is more impatient. They come back with a fancy MBA and they want to implement a lot of things in their dad's company or their mom's company. And the older generation is not so sure whether that's the right way to go. So the adolescence is a zone of conflict, and a very small percentage of companies pass through the zone. Now let's see what happens after the zone. Let me come back to the, see, you have the infancy when you're not sure the company chalegi ki nahi chalegi. Then you come to go-go when there is success and the founder has bought his first Rolex watch and he's flush with cash and he's become a rock star. And then a few years later, maybe 5 years, 10 years later, when it has grown into a multi-locational large company, the founder finds it difficult to manage with the same leadership style that worked very well in the first 10, 15 years. Because you can't manage a teenage daughter the same way when you managed her when she was 2 years old. वो चलेगा नहीं. And those leaders who are able to change the leadership style as the company grows and evolves, they are the ones who cross the adolescent stage and come to the prime stage. So this is the adolescent stage, and then you come to prime. Prime is the best stage of the life cycle. This is where everybody would like to be, but less than 1% people actually make it to this stage. So prime is a stage of predictable excellence. You will be able to forecast that I'm growing at 32% and your actual growth will be 32%. During go-go phase, you're not sure कि अगले साल double होगा कि आधा हो जाएगा काम. But predictable excellence means company has stabilized. By now it's a 500-600,000 crore company. You know, you can predict, you have a strong team of professionals. Then the professionals you have are best in class for your size and for your industry, and you can really depend on them. Your head of marketing, your head of sales, your head of factory, your plant managers, they know what they're doing, they're professional, they're well trained. Also, you have built a culture. Companies in the prime stage, the founder has built a culture which employees are engaged, motivated, and empowered. So they take ownership for successes and failures. They don't say, go and ask Sethji se baat karo, bhai humse kyun baat kar rahe ho? They take full ownership on their own shoulders. Then the values and vision are institutionalized. Long-term succession plan is in place for 2 levels. Agar head of sales chala gaya, to who will come in his place? That has already been thought through. If the CEO suddenly leaves, if he's a professional CEO, then what's your pipeline? Do you have 2-3 other people who can fill his shoes? Then if you stop a manager on the shop floor and ask him, कि भाई तुम्हारा 1 साल का operating plan क्या है और 5 साल का strategic plan क्या है, he will be able to give you a rough idea. It's not that it's all this information is only in the head of the founder. The next professional level also knows the 1-year plan and the 5-year plan. So that's a company in the prime stage. And companies in prime stage are self-driven. The owner can go for an Alaskan cruise for 2 weeks and the company will run click, clock, no problem. He can distance himself for a few weeks and the systems and the processes are so well built that the company will work on its own. You will also find companies in the prime stage, they will have some independent directors from other industries to give you a diversity of opinion. When companies are small, founders are reluctant to get independent directors. They don't want to, their secrets to be leaked out, or they don't see the value in the proposition. But once they cross a certain size, they have confidence and they will get people from different industries, economists, completely FMCG, if you are in, let's say, branded goods. So you might get a professor from a well-known business school as as an independent director or as an advisor. He doesn't have to be on the board, but he's somebody who, when you have your quarterly meetings, who can inject some fresh ideas into your business. Or if you are making some mistakes, he can probably tell you. And if you give these independent directors the respect and you give them a proper hearing, then you will be able to maximize the value from them. So the question to you is, which stage are you in this life cycle? Are you in go-go stage? Are you in infancy stage? Are you in adolescence? Or have you already reached prime? Have you already reached prime? So that's a question to you. So this is a life cycle. Take a minute to just think, where is your organization on this life cycle? Are you in infancy? Are you in go-go? Are you in adolescence, which is the zone of conflict? And only those who are able to successfully manage the conflict in the zone will get to prime. And Prime is a tape, is a stage where the founder can go and build a cancer hospital in his mother's name, and the company will run click, clock, click, clock. He has everything in place, systems and processes. And he's at the strategy stage. He's at the policy making stage. He's the person who hires the CEO, the person who hires the independent directors, but he doesn't get involved in day-to-day operations because he doesn't need to. And he has people trained for all that. And he can't. If it's a multi-locational unit, then he can't. So that is the first stage. And Namita, over to you if you have any questions at this stage. Then we'll come to part 2.
So Mr. Chopra, yeah, I do have a question over here when you are talking about the life cycle of a business. Just wanted to understand, what are some typical mistakes that a founder could make in their life cycle journey where they may not be able to reach the prime stage?
Okay, good question. So, the biggest stage is that founders micromanage the business. They are unable to give up control. They are unable to distance themselves from the company. They love it so much. They are so passionate about their own company. It's like their child. They spend more time in their company than with their biological children. Company is their life. So they continue to micromanage the company for years and years, well beyond the time. And by then, their second line, their function heads, they have become professionals and they can take a lot of decisions. But all the small and the big decisions end up on the founder's table. So the one big mistake they make is they micromanage the business. They over-regulate it and they throttle the business. They're not able to let go. This is, the biggest one. Second, of course, is what we are going to come to, and that's how do you manage conflict? Because a little bit of conflict is good. There will be, if you have a family of 4 or 5 people, there'll be 10 things you'll agree on. There'll be 5 things you will disagree on. So the question comes, how do you build consensus? First question, how do you build consensus? The second question is, in some cases, you will not be able to build consensus. How do you move forward in those cases? And these are normal, natural cases. There will be discussions and everybody will have his own opinion. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But how they manage that, difference of opinion, because everybody comes from a different background, a different functional strength. We have different visibilities, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's quite good to say, yes, we disagree on 5 things, we agree on 10 things, and we're going to work together to decide how to move forward.
Okay. I just had one more question before we continue with the presentation. What percentage of a family they survive, they stay united and survive up to the 3rd generation?
Very few, very few. Up to the end of the 2nd generation, there are various studies, but roughly less than 30% will make it to the end of the 2nd generation and less than 10% to the end of the 3rd generation. So I used to give talks I still give talks to customers of ICICI Bank who take working capital from them. And if I ask the audience of about 100 people, please raise your hands. How many of you are 3rd generation, 2nd generation, or 1st generation in this room? And they are all clients of banks. And all are in family businesses. Very few hands will go up for the 3rd generation. I have rarely seen a hand going up on the 4th generation, rarely. And the overwhelming majority is 1st generation.
Okay. So as you said, there are very few which survives up to 2nd, and once it comes to the 3rd generation, they normally, they phase out.
Yeah, they phase out. They're unable to sustain beyond 2 generations.
Okay. Fine. No questions as of now. I think we can continue with the presentation. And if anybody from the audience has any question, they can put it up in the Q&A session. And then I believe we can take it towards the end of the session.
Yes, I'll be delighted. Please type your questions and Namita will read them out and I'll be happy to respond. Okay, well, let's move on to the second part. So back to the title. How do you manage a multi-generational, with all the pushes and pulls, how do you manage a multi-generational family business? Professor John Davis, who's now in MIT Sloan and earlier was in Harvard, he did a study of South Asian family businesses. And he found that the founder's journey has 2 legs. There are 2 parts. to the journey of a founder. Pehla jo part hai, it's a one-man show, and all his time and energy spent in running the business. And that's what he's good at. That's what he's trained for. That's why he succeeded. That's why he's become a rock star. The second part is unknown territory for him because he has to manage a consortium of relatives, maybe nephews, nieces, children, he or she has to manage a whole lot of people who have entered business at a later stage. So he found in a study that 50% of the time of the founder in the second leg of the journey is spent in managing the crossed wires inside the family. And only 50% is available to actually run the business. Now, this is a chart which shows you how the family wealth moves. So the first generation starts the business. Generally, the second generation adds on to it, builds on it, and grows it more. And the third brings it down. Now, this has been seen across 50, 60 countries, and they have a saying in many countries, from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. The overwhelming majority of families follow this path. But there are some which go on and on and on. Then they've understood what it takes to run a multi-generational business, and then they go on and on. That's a small percentage. There also are the usual, cycles of a hardworking, self-made industrialist, and the second generation becomes a playboy, and the third comes back on the road, he's a beggar again. And this is not just Vijay Mallya, this is a lot of profiles like that. So the question to the audience, to the participants here is, you are all in the same boat, all family members, but how aligned are you? Is the teamwork in your family business, are you running at, you will rate yourself as 80% teamwork? Then you should strive for 90% to make it even smoother. Maybe you are below halfway mark, you're 40%, and maybe you need to, do something about it. If it's below 50% and you have difficulty in taking big decisions together, so problem hai, there's nothing wrong. I mean, there's nothing to be defensive about. Ki sabka apna opinion to hoga hi hoga. You have to just sit across the table and sort it out. And this is what I help families in mostly. In how do you build consensus? And in areas where you are unable to build consensus, how do you move forward? Because it's given, you will agree on 10 things, you will disagree on 5 things, part of life. There's nothing to be defensive about. And it's important to, to work, to spend time on teamwork, building teamwork in a family business. You see, you can hire a CEO, आप hire कर सकते हो plant manager, you can hire a head of sales, but you can't hire a person to manage a family. कि भाई मेरी relationship बच्चों के साथ सब ठीक कर दो, my wife should be smiling and happy, or if it's a wife who's the founder, she should say my husband should love me, he should participate in the business, we should take smooth decisions, and my nephews and nieces, we should all be working together and holidaying together and run together. You can't hire a person to help you do that. But you can hire a person as head of sales, you can hire a person as the CEO, but not to manage your own family. That's the crux of what we are discussing today. So, it is the culture which is built by the founder that decides whether you'll go for multi-generational success or you are going on the conflict route. Sometimes, I attend these family council meetings. It's very soft-spoken. The founder hears everybody, says, "Sabki baat maine sun li. Now I think this is the way we'll go." And everybody agrees, fine. Even if their original opinion was different. Because he's the most seasoned person, he's best equipped to take decisions, but he hears everybody out. Then there are other family meetings where everybody's shouting and nobody's listening. And they are not able to come to the right decision for the company. That's very common. And you got to do something about it. Otherwise, you're taking a lot of risks for the business, for your health, for your family, for everybody. So there are 2 paths. One is the path of conflict. The other is the part of multi-generational success. And we'll discuss both. You've seen all these headlines in the papers. Second generation Ambani family split, Hinduja family after 105 years is split. Godrej has been very together all along, but some cracks have lately appeared. The Singhania story is something you all read about so many times. So this is a reality. There are many families which get into conflict second generation onwards. Pricewaterhouse did a global survey, they do one every year, and they found two challenges. And this is not just India, this is a global issue. Sari dunya mein same issues are there. Succession and conflict between family members is very common. These were listed by the founders as challenges in his family. So the question asked to the founder was, what do you think are your biggest challenges? And there were other challenges, about 10. I'm just picking up 2 of these to illustrate a point. They had listed down 10 biggest challenges, of which 2 ye the. So you see, this is the way, if there is a big zone of conflict, this is the way things will work out. There'll be internal conflict, there'll be paralysis, destruction of wealth, your relationships will go for a 6, and it's a problem for you. Now let's look at the other side. There are thousands of families where, there are shining examples of success, and they've done a few things. They've done a few things, which I'll tell you soon, to get multi-generational success, where they all move together as one team. Now, what are those? This is a recent book by Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal. Now, this is one of the best managed families in North India. In South India, Murugappa Group is one of the best managed as far as multi-generational success is concerned. So today in their flagship company in the Hero Group, in the Munjal family, they have, by the 4th and the 5th generation, they have more than 100 people who are working. But only 20 have been absorbed in the flagship core business. The Hero Motor Co, their core business, only 20. So they have a criteria, kaun join kar sakta hai, kaun join nahi kar sakta. And there is no heartburn, there is no conflict, because they have a clear set of criteria. They don't want to risk bringing down the big company just to accommodate family members. Then there are other family members who want to do something of their own. They say, "Humko koi interest nahi hai is business mein. I want to do something. I want to make chocolates. I want to, run a finance company. I want to run a brokerage. I want to do something else." And the family encourages that and supports them and funds them. And, they have checks and balances at different stages. So this is one of the best managed families, large, successful, multi-generational. And Murugappa Group is one of the best in South India, from an internal governance structure where there's no conflict or very little conflict, or I should say it's managed very well. It's, the differences of opinion are there, which is normal. They're managed very well. They have a structure in place. This is Harsh Mariwala. In one generation, he built a 8,000 crore company called Marico. They make parachute nariyal tel. And he told his family, "I have no interest in this Bombay Oil Mills," which was a family business. And they funded him, they helped him, and he started. In one generation, he's built a 8,000 crore business. This is a Japanese company, a shop actually, which is 1,000 years old. They have been through 2 world wars, tsunamis, earthquakes, and they still exist and serve customers and are doing very well. Japan has the maximum number of family businesses above 1,000 years, by the way. This is a family in Italy, again, a shining example of success. So they are now in the 26th generation. This is the famous Antinori family, and they have vineyards. So they are in the business of making wine. And they had a rule that the most capable male heir of every generation will run the family business, and they will not divide their vineyard and their business, and he will buy out the others, but only one person from every generation will be selected to run the family business, whichever has the maximum passion for the winemaking. Now in the 26th generation, what's happened, there are no male heirs. So Mr. Antinori has decided that all his 3 daughters are going to be inheriting this business, and they will jointly run this business. So this is the 26th generation. अब आगे क्या होगा, मुझे भी नहीं पता, देखते हैं क्या होगा. ISB did a study of these famous families as to understand what did they do differently to have survived, and not just survived, but thrived and done very well across 4 generations. Murugappa Group, Dabur Group, Wadia, Godrej, Kirloskar. They're all household names. So the thousands of companies could not make it to this stage, but these made it. So इन्होंने किया तो क्या किया? What did they do differently? And I've read this report a number of times to figure out, and we've had extensive discussions with many families on what they need to do. So now comes the question, so what is the secret? वो सब तो हो गया भाई, बातचीत हो गई, सब लड़ाई झगड़ा हो गया, सब कुछ हो गया. अब है क्या? What is the answer? What is the solution? Now we are coming to the solution. So hold your breath. Now let me explain. This is what I do. Take families out for off-site retreats to a golf course, to an organic farm, to Goa, wherever they want to go, maybe a 1-hour drive outside the city. वो सारा काम छोड़ के, क्योंकि when you are working day to day, there are too many distractions. ये चेक साइन कर दिए, अर्जेंट ऑर्डर आ गया है, क्या करना है, एक्साइज पेमेंट है, रिजेक्शन हो गया है, कैश नहीं है. So the family takes time out, goes for 2 days to an off-site resort and talks everything over. What is working well, what is not working well, needs to be tweaked. Now, Mr. Ajay Shriram, the chairman of DCM Group, in a recent webinar on CII, said कि पिछले 20 साल से, we 3 brothers who run our DCM Group, we go out to a Himalayan resort for 2-3 days and we sit down together and we talk it all over. What is working well, what is not working well, which needs minor tweaking, क्योंकि सबका काम करने का तरीका अलग होगा, वो तो होगा ही होगा. So what do they need to do to run together and work as a team? So the secret is you have to go off-site and spend 2-3 days once a year and really keep fine-tuning and improving the harmony within your organization and within your family. And I've been taking families out for the last so many years. सब खुल के बात होती है. Everything is discussed one by one. We relax, sit down, t-shirts, jeans. This is not a suit and tie meeting. It's over a, chai pe charcha. And we structure it very well over 2 days. What is to be discussed? What's the sequence? And between brothers running a big conglomerate, what do they like about the others? What they don't like? What they would like improvement to see the improvement they would like to see in the others. We discuss what are best practices of successful family businesses, which they can adopt. What can you learn from them? So this is what happens in the offsite retreat when I take families out, and you can learn from this. You can apply this to your business. Step one, I meet everybody one-to-one outside before the retreat to understand their aspirations. What do they want to do in life? How's the role fitting in? Is there something that really worrying them? Something that's worrying them a little bit, but needs to be fixed, nipped in the bud. And we, it is a standard 15-point questionnaire, and we go through everything. And over a cup of coffee. Then we meet in the golf resort or whatever. And we spend 2 days discussing in a structured way, step by step, what all do we need to do? What are the things we need to put in place for multi-generational success? And we also share examples of what other successful families are doing. How did they survive 20 generations, 30 generations in harmony? And we draft a family charter. A family charter is a set of rules. I'll come to that. That's very important. Once you cross the 2nd generation, you need a family charter. It's a simple set of rules by which we will all work together. Because you can't play a game of football without rules. You don't know where the goal post is. You don't know what is a foul. You know what the boundary is. और सब अपना गोल मार रहे हैं तो फिर नहीं होगा. So you need to build a family charter sitting together. And this is what we do, and we talk it all over. Very openly, transparently, how to make it work.
Mr. Chopra, I just had one question here.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel that, the family members, they are reluctant to talk about their internal conflicts. So as an external family advisor, how do you really help it? So that, they speak up and they bring out, all those issues. which may be going on in their minds. So how do you help them as an external advisor?
Namita, you've hit the nail on the head. The biggest problem in families is they are in a state of denial. नहीं, हमारी तो फैमिली 3 generations एक साथ है, हम तो बहुत closely knit family है, तो कोई problem ही नहीं है. When actually there may be major issues and they are reluctant.
Exactly. Yeah.
They are reluctant to, and to an outsider, they're even more reluctant. अरे, how can I discuss my family issues with an outsider? हो ही नहीं सकता. आज तक हमने किया नहीं, ये तो बिल्कुल possible ही नहीं. They're even reluctant to admit it to themselves कि there is a interpersonal issue or they need to make some changes. So the first step, the most important step, is to discuss with them openly that this is normal. अगर 10 आदमी काम कर रहे हैं एक कंपनी में या 5 आदमी कर रहे हैं तो differences तो होंगे ही होंगे. सबका अपना तरीका है काम करने का. There's no problem. It's a part of life. The question is, how do you manage it? How do you set up a set of rules so everybody has his own territory? How do you, what are your principles of compensation? What are your rules for inducting the second generation into the family business? And once these are openly discussed, then things are sorted out. But if people keep it under the table or under the carpet and they refuse to admit to any outsider or even to themselves, or they just stop talking to their brother, bhai se baat hi nahi karunga, bas. And that's a danger sign. Because when people stop talking, it is there is a problem and the company is heading for a split. And a lot of wealth destruction, a lot of, even if there's going to be, there's a need for splitting, or one family member wants to exit to do something of his own, he has a passion for something else, so nothing wrong with that. It has to be openly discussed. You have to facilitate his exit rather than have an unhappy person in the family. इसको कोई इंटरेस्ट ही नहीं है, वो भी दुखी होगा सारी जिंदगी और फैमिली भी दुखी होगी उससे. So the idea is that if he is a sportsman, I met in Bangalore a few years ago one person who runs a successful business. He said, look, my second son is a sportsman. He has only interest in sports. को कोई business का interest ही नहीं है. उसको मैं घसीट के लाऊं business में, जरूर करो, and he'll not be happy, I'll not be happy, and there'll be a problem in the business. He'll sink the business. So why should I force him? So, you need a very mature, seasoned, and a very humble minded founder who puts the interest of the company above everything else and says, let's talk things over and move step by step, because internal alignment is very important. So you have raised a very valid question. I would say 80% of the people I meet are reluctant to talk.
Exactly. When I meet them, they don't even feel that there is an issue, that there is a problem. It's like, it's budding and suddenly it erupts like a volcano.
Yes, correct. They are, somehow it's seen as a very negative thing, whereas actually it's a very natural and normal thing. If there are 5 people, the 5 opinions, so hogi, and nothing wrong with that. So what you need to do is to have a culture of brainstorming, where everybody puts his own opinion. It is discussed, debated. If you're different, no problem. You should not avoid putting your opinion on the table. Arey, dad ko acha nahi lagega. Mere bade bhai usko naraz ho jayenge agar main bolunga. No, if it's good for the business, and the culture should be that everybody puts what he thinks exactly is good for the company on the table. And then you discuss logically why, which is the best idea, and doesn't matter kiska idea hai. If it's good for the company, adopt it. And if you have that culture, then the company is able to manage. But if there is a culture of big egos, or maine bol diya to bol diya, or I'm the eldest brother, so I'm right, or I'm the eldest sister, so I'm right, then there's a problem. Or if the founder says, no, then there's a problem. Sometimes the founders are very arrogant. Meri company hai, main chalaunga, jaise mere man hai, main chalaunga. I mean, if you want to work, fine, otherwise your problem. So then you don't get multi-generation. You're not able to bring people on board. So my message is, agar somebody is not fitting into the business, don't worry, facilitate his exit. Find out what he's interested in, help him set up whatever he wants. Like the Munjal family. In fact, Mr. Sunil Kant Munjal at a recent CII webinar said, we encourage the second generation and the third and the fourth generation to pursue their passion. We don't ask everybody to join the family business. अगर आपको इंटरेस्ट है, करना चाहते हो, you will get your, your inheritance through dividends and all that. That's fine. But in addition to that, if you want to work in a family business, you have to have the aptitude and the capability. So you have to be a natural fit into the company. Yeah, you should not be a force fit. Otherwise, it will be a problem both sides. So coming back to the family charter, which is a set of rules, ये बहुत ज़रूरी है to put it in place. And this is what I help families doing. And these rules cannot be imposed. They have to be discussed bottom up. And once everybody's agreed, then it moves beautifully. They understand each other, they understand the rules, they respect the rules, because they're a party to making the rules. It's not somebody has come and impose some rules on them. They are a party to making those rules. So what are these points? ये जो family charter discussion हम लोग करते हैं, what are these things which need to be put in place? One is the roles, responsibilities, authorities, limits. How many, who can sign what check up to what value? अगर कोई major capital investment है, तो it can't be the decision only of the factory manager. If one son is running, let's say, a factory, he has to, if it's above up to say 5 crores, he can take. Or if it's between 5 and 20 crores, then the board has to come in. Or then the whole family has to decide if it's above. So depending on the size of the business, you have to have a set of authority limits, roles, responsibilities with no overlaps, and a review, monthly review, which everybody sits. Then the compensation principles have to be agreed. On what basis will you compensate people who work in the company, people who do not work in the company? Then the dividend policy. कुछ कंपनियां क्या करती हैं, सारा reinvest कर देती हैं. Everything is in one basket. अगर उसको कुछ हो गया तो सब गए. There are many others who reinvest a small part, but they also build assets outside, which are personal assets of the individual family members. तो अगर वो later on कहीं अपना काम करना चाहिए, he wants to go out somewhere, he has something personal in his own name, which is done for all family members. So there is less risk then of everything being in one common basket. If the next generation, for example, disagrees, then you don't destroy everything. You already taken out a lot of personal assets, and so what should be the dividend policy? ये हर एक company को अपने लिए decide करना है. What works for you will not work for somebody else. Then shared assets. Then should spouses, some children say, no, my wife is also a CA and she wants to join the company. Or there's a daughter of in Bombay, I remember I was talking. She said, I want to bring my husband into the company. He's a professional working in a different company. I want to bring him in. So these things have to be discussed in advance and rules made. Ek family mein, they said no spouses will work. It complicates life too much. Sabke liye bada problem ho jata. It makes it very political. So they are free to follow their own professional career, but they will not be allowed to work in this company. That's a common rule. Then travel policy, do they go by business class, economy? Ek family mein baat kar raha tha, the younger son said, I'll always travel economy. Aajkal cash kam hai, hum nayi factory laga rahe hain. The elder brother said, no, I always go business. There's no question of my traveling economy. These are the best years of my life. मैं अभी नहीं travel करूँगा business में तो कब करूँगा? क्या फायदा इतनी बड़ी company चलाने का? And they are both right. They are both points of view. So it's not a question of who's right and who's wrong. The question is, how will you work together? Do you have a common set of rules to work together? And similarly, exit policy. If somebody in this generation or the next generation wants to exit the business, you have to facilitate it and make it simple so that he can do what he wants, he gets his share and does not disrupt the business. And how you do it and should be talked over. So you don't have to worry about conflict. The conflict is a difference of opinion is not conflict, and difference of opinion is a part of life. वो तो होगा ही होगा. So the idea is, how do you sit together and make a set of rules so that you work together for 10 generations, 20 generations. And in these rare cases when you need to split, क्योंकि आपके interest अलग हो गए हैं, no problem. You sit down, you talk it over transparently, and you create a win-win situation. So this is the result of that off-site workshop, off-site retreat for 2 days, and this intervention. Normally, this is what happens at the end of it. It clears up channels of communication. It clears the air totally. अब चाय पे चर्चा आराम से हो रही है. There are a lot of things which now can get discussed, which earlier people were afraid of discussing. for fear of offending somebody. And it dramatically changes, the collaboration, cooperation, and teamwork. And ultimately, it directly impacts the growth, profitability, and the longevity of the business. No doubt about it. So these are, as I come the last 5 minutes, these are the 6 keys to unity in a family business. Step 1, align your values and vision. Roles and responsibilities. It should be on paper and it should be thought through. Family charter, you have to make a set of rules of how you'll work together. All the big families have it. Every single big family has it. Exit for family members who want out. Succession planning is very important. Some founders will say, I will want to, at the age of 65, go for Char Dham Yatra, or I want to, set up a charity school in my hometown, or whatever they want to do, or I want to travel. मैंने बहुत काम कर लिया, अब now I want to travel, अब आप लोग काम संभालो. There are others who say, no, this company is my life. I will die with my boots on. I will work till my last day. I love my work, and my children, others will run different divisions. But as the head of the company, it's my company. I've spent the best part of my life building this company. I'm going to run it. And that's also fine. So, we are not here to pass judgment ki kya theek hai, kya galat hai. We have to see, given the reality, how do we work together and how do we, successfully run a multi-generational family business. And communication is very important because you have to set up monthly meetings and fortnightly meetings with a set agenda so that all issues get discussed and there are no misunderstandings. Now, last 2 minutes, I'll run you through some past events which I have done with ICICI Bank and different banks with groups of people, all family business owners, groups of 80 to 100 people in different cities. And all these issues come up and they are discussed openly. Now, a bade group mein people don't discuss their personal issues. So the group meetings are for, 80, 90 people. So you discuss generic issues, how to make a family charter, how do you do an offsite retreat, all that. They don't come to, interpersonal issues. But when you meet them one-to-one, then, we talk to them and help them and, help them resolve and find solutions. So this is with the 120 family owners in Nasik. This was in different cities, Calcutta, Bangalore. These are all customers of different banks, all running family businesses and debating how they can, successfully run a multi-generational family business. And there are very lively questions and answers. Bangalore, Bombay, this is Chennai, 2 industry association had invited me on how do you induct the next generation into a family business. But they were having a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, and they don't want to join the family business, or father is too rigid and he's too mentality of command and control. They're saying, sorry, dad is very good, a very nice person, he runs the business very well, but I can't work for him. Hamari to baat hi nahi banti bilkul. So what do I do? Then this is Taj Vivanta in Delhi, then Ludhiana, Punjab people are very strong. Among Sikhs, they are very successful business community. And you have the culture of Singh is king. So in one kingdom, if you have 3 kings, the 2 from the second generation and 1 from the founding generation, at times it's a challenge to all work together. And Sikhs are a very successful business community, and they're also very strong. So we come to the Q&A at the end. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and I'll be delighted to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Harsh Chopra. So we have a couple of questions. So I will just read it out from the chat box. So the first question is, when a child wants to leave for his passion in the 3rd generation, what would be the fair sharing in such a situation?
Very good question and a very important question. So, there is no one solution for all families. If somebody in the 3rd generation wants to be a footballer or wants to be a musician or something, sometimes, these professions don't pay so well. So the founder has to make them financially secure and put some financial instruments in place so he has some backup and allow him to pursue his passion. Sometimes, you have given some shares of the company, some property, some other things. And then remember, you can never get it perfectly right. Uske baad kya hoga, company might take off or might nosedive. You don't know. Ek generation aage jaake kya hoga. But you can do the best using your best judgment at that point of time. So don't force somebody who has no interest in the business to come in. Or aajkal to bahut common ho gaya. Very common for the second or third generation to want to do something else. But you have to give them some financial security, short term, long term, and you have to also talk to them and get some outsiders, professionals to talk to them to understand, is it just a passing fad or is he serious about it? Give him time. Normally, if he has taken a decision to be, let's say, a sportsman, you tell him, all right, you take 1 year to think about it. Till then, you keep doing partly family business, partly your career. Socho, 1 saal lagao. Agar uske baad bhi you are clear you want to do it, then fine. It's okay. Then you have to structure it in a way that he gets his fair share of inheritance. But as a professional, the people who work in the company, in addition to inheritance, will get their salary, which should be linked to the market salary in some ways.
Okay. Next question is, how do you handle ego and trust issues that exist between the founder and the second generation, especially when those issues have not been addressed before they joined the company?
This is the major issue. The point you raise now, if you can crack this, to phir to bilkul subhanallah, bahut acha hai. There's peace, and you can be a yogi in Himalayas and everything is taken care of. Because founders, knowingly or unknowingly, have a strong ego. They are arrogant, they have a strong ego, and they are successful. And they are used to a culture where all the employees have said, "Wah bhai wah sir, aap to mahan hai." Now, when the second generation comes in, they have their own ideas. Sometimes they have good ideas, sometimes not so good. So you have to see it on a case-to-case basis, and you have to keep ego out of this. And ek cheez aur hai, this is a small program I run when we do the retreat, which will help you. You can do it yourself. You have to ask every member and build a culture where people can take negative feedback. Now, that's not easy to do. If somebody, you should not take it as personal criticism, whether it's the second generation or it's the first generation. In one case, I found that we had 2-3 meetings, and the second generation had no discipline and no, they didn't take the business seriously. He will come in and he will, come late for the family meetings. Now his father, his mother, the other family senior members and others are all on time. If we start on the dot, we do a retreat. He'll end up 1 hour later. "Oh, I got up late. I'm sorry. Can I order some breakfast on the table here?" And you can do that once, but you cannot do it all the time. So I, as an outsider, took him aside and told him, "Look, you can't run a family business like this. Everybody comes and respects the starting time of 9 o'clock, but aap 9:30 baje aa rahe ho. This is not sustainable. It's not going to work, and you'll not be able to work in the company if you continue to behave like this." So it's a personal habit which you have to change. You took it differently, but the family takes it differently. If you all have to work together, basic rules you all have to adhere to. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Okay. Next question. What are the ways to deal with compensation disagreements between founder and the second generation?
Yeah. So this, sometimes this is discussed openly. Sometimes people are reluctant. The second generation is reluctant to raise this with the founder. There is no, every family has its own formula. Unki apni financial position hai, roles and responsibilities hai. You don't know what kind of contribution to the business the second generation is making. So you have to factor all that in and talk it over. That's what I do when these questions come up. Talk to both generations separately, then together, and work out a formula. And whoever disagrees, explain to him why. What is the logic behind your decision? But generally, it's good to peg the salary. Jo log family mein kaam kar rahe hain full time, they should get a certain markup, maybe 1.5 times the what the market is paying for that position. And whatever they get as dividend is based on your policy, which all the family members who are shareholders will get. Now, whether you want to reinvest everything in dividend back into the company or only part of it and take out some money to build a personal asset base, इसमें कोई सही और गलत जवाब नहीं होता. I've seen many families who put everything back into the business, and there are many families who take most of it out and build a personal asset base. And both are right. It depends on the situation, your own thinking. It's like, asking, is it better to have an Innova or is it better to have a BMW 5? Now, there's no answer to that. Depends on your family, your culture, and what your values are. Then you should also give them the flexibility to structure their salary as they want. So you give them, all right, your salary is 80 lakhs a year. Your total package is 80 lakhs a year. Whether you want a bigger car or a bigger house, or you want more monthly variable, or you want to travel more, that's yours. You want to spend more on weddings, somebody says, no, it's a waste of money. So give them the flexibility to structure the expenses as they want, but the total amount should be fixed.
Next question is also similar. What should be the ideal asset wealth distribution between two brothers who work in the same business? One who has kids and one who doesn't. How does this affect the personal wealth in the next generation?
Yeah, that's a very fundamental question. What the practically kya hota hai? Most families mein, if you have 3 children or 4 children, your wealth is equally divided, irrespective of how many children they have or what is their need. If somebody has, this is worldwide, this is the practice being followed. So you might have one person with one child, he will inherit the entire wealth of his father. Then another person, another brother, he's got 3 children, so they will only get 1/3. But the salary, all 4 will get equal depending on where they are working in the company. तो जिसके 3 बच्चे हैं, वो 3 काम कर रहे हैं कंपनी में, उनको तीनों को सैलरी मिलेगी, because salary is different from inheritance. You have to separate these two. The salary is for your full-time day job that you're doing in the company. Agar you don't do it, you'll have to hire an outsider. Inheritance is something that comes from your family, and that is a share of profits. That is equal always. And many families, they tend to help somebody who's weak. Agar koi child hai na, wo zara mentally he's not normal or he needs a little help, to trust bana ke, they will take care of his basic financial needs, and so that he doesn't come on the road, and then structure it based on family culture values. So iska independent family to family vary karta hai. There is no one rule for this.
Okay. Next question is, what are the pros and cons of setting up a family trust? I think I could answer.
Yes, you do that.
Yeah. So family trust is basically, it's actually set up for succession planning. Normally what we do is the founder will write down his will that after the lifetime of the founder, this is how the company shares will get distributed between the children. So he could just mention under a will that 50% will go to the elder son and 50% will go to the younger son. But vis-a-vis, a private family trust is a tool for succession planning where the founder can actually transfer 100% of the shareholding into the trust, or rather 99% shareholding into the trust. And both the sons, they could become beneficiaries of it. So basically, a business family would set up a trust to actually consolidate the shareholding at the top level, to de-link ownership from management. And of course, because there could be a possibility that one brother is actively managing the business, but the second brother is not active in the business. So in such cases, it is only the active members who are on the board of trustees, whereas the entire family would continue to receive the benefits of it. And other benefits are, of course, asset protection, protection from creditor claims, from spousal claims. So these are basic reasons for setting up a family trust, where we plan for the succession as well as avoid any kind of family disputes, de-link ownership and management. So that's the whole purpose. This is more of an inheritance tax planning for the ownership of the family business. Yeah.
Very well explained, Namrata.
So just 1 minute. There are some questions in the chat room also. I will just read those out.
Sure.
Are there any rough templates, formulas as to how to distribute dividend and not salary to maintain or support a uniform lifestyle across members of the family?
Just read it again. Read it again.
Are there any rough templates or formulas as to how to distribute dividend and not salary to maintain or support a uniform lifestyle across members of the family?
Yes, that's a fundamental question. Based on what your expenses for your family are, the size of your business, everybody needs every family member needs certain living expenses. उसमें से कुछ लोग कंपनी में भी काम करेंगे and some will not be working. So you have to adjust your dividend to meet that minimum financial needs of your family members, subject to the company being able to afford it. Because in many cases, the company can't afford to pay that level of dividend. So if that limit is not crossed, then you have to, sustain. And it's also a personal decision as to how much do you want to pay as dividend and what you consider as a normal lifestyle. Is 2 cars okay, or do you think 4 cars is minimum? So this is a fairly personal question. But you have to separate the two. Dividend alag cheez hai, salary alag. Jo kaam karte hain business mein will get a salary. So he's working full 8-10 hours. And there are many cases where let's say you have 3 children, 3 sons. One of them says, I don't want to work in the family business. The other 2 are employed. So they will get a salary. He will not get a salary because he's doing his own thing. But the dividend will be equal for all 3. Because inheritance typically is equal. If there's sometimes one child has special needs and you want to really take care of him, so then you either make a trust or some financial arrangement where he's taken care of, because he will not be able to fit into the business, and you don't know after you how the others will treat him.
Okay. Next question is, how is the 1.5 times market value salary markup for family members justified when there are other international partners in the business?
Right. So you see, many companies in Europe have 0 markup. Whatever is the market salary, you have to pay the market salary. And many family managed businesses, to maintain a certain level of lifestyle, have a markup of 1.5, even 2 times. Now that's, that decision is based on your shareholding. If you're able to bring him on board, fine. If he says no, then it becomes an interpersonal discussion. It's nothing to do with the values or traditions. You might want to pay 1.5 times. I think you should, but if he has a controlling stake and he says no, then you can't. So this is more an interpersonal issue. It's not a norm, and you can sell it to him saying that this is the norm in the country. He is a family member who should get 1.5 times market value, and if you are able to convince him, fine, go ahead. But this becomes an interpersonal matter. Kiske paas zyada control hai and how he wants to decide.
Okay, I think Mr. Chopra, that was the last question. So yes, I think we can end our session over here. And great, it was a very insightful session for managing multi-generation family business. Yeah.
Yes, if you have any questions or you want to just call me or reach out, sometimes have a 1 hour one-on-one session to help you think through some of your problems. I think when you run a family business, harmony is the bottom line, trust and harmony. So I hope you found the discussion useful. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chopra. And I believe Mr. Harsh Chopra is more like a communicator or a facilitator. Because sometimes what we see is, as I had mentioned earlier, that the family members are not ready to open up and actually speak about their problems. So when there is an outside or an external advisor, and where he meets them one-to-one, I believe they can talk to you, open to you, and then you could bring all that on the table with with all the founders and the family, and then actually put down a family charter in place. So of course, I believe with your expertise, where you've been advising so many family houses and businesses, it would be very useful for our clients who could join us, and certainly if they need any personal help, they could approach you for the same.
You can share my number. Somebody is asking how they can connect with me. And
Okay.
you can check with Namita. You can share my email and contacts.
Yeah, sure. Fine. So I will share this with the participants, and even like a recording would be available later. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chopra. Thank you everybody for joining this. Yes.
Bye.